Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me in our first Wednesday of the month, focus on ARV and learn by doing. This is sponsored by APPI, who is very interested in education and training people to become precog professionals. So this is part of both of those objectives here. Now, I always have a topic that's related to ARV, and today is higher self. What does that mean, if anything? But I want to emphasize I'm talking about personal higher self. Everything we're doing and we'll be talking about here is focused on you and your personal interaction with your higher self, your subconscious, all the things which you do as part of remote viewing and ARVing. Now, the first half hour, we will have an ARV tutorial with hints for newbies and oldbies as well. And then 12:30 to 1:30 is when I'll be talking about the specific topic, personal higher self. What does that mean, if anything? And then we're going to be doing feedback for a month-long earlier prediction that was set up about a month ago. We'll take a half an hour for that. This is very important. Some of you who are like newbies and didn't do it last month, that's fine, because we're really going to be talking about it, showing you what to do. And then we'll take an hour and actually do a new month-long prediction, which next month will be the feedback. So that's the plan. The associative remote viewing in linear time, okay, so here's the time axis, is, I believe, really straightforward in principle once you're willing to accept that you can get information from the future using basically precognitive remote viewing. And this is where you do your remote viewing session. The tasking is describe and sketch or sketch your feedback target. And as you'll see, we put a target reference number or coordinate in here just to make it in particular. But basically, that's what you do, describe and sketch your feedback target. So this is when you remote view the target and you create a transcript. Now, I want to just emphasize, this is when you could rate the transcript for the one and only target that you will see and experience during your feedback session. The remote viewing session and feedback session are the most strongly entangled of everything in ARV. And so in the future is when you see your feedback target. You experience it, you work with it, you again describe and or sketch it to strengthen the entanglement. Knowing you're going to do that here, knowing that you're going to spend time with the feedback target here is, I believe, a major part of why you get a good description here. And I think most of us have seen such wonderful examples of this. And it is the feedback session where you see your feedback target. The truth. You have the absolute truth about the target, and you can work with it here. So these are the most strongly entangled. However, so what? What is it that we can do with this? And this is where the in-between phase comes, which is the analysis judging of the remote viewing transcript that you did here. Here is where an investment decision can be made. Now, how is that indeed done? Well, that's done because we're now, and in these, we focus on financials, but the exact same thing is done for those of you who are in sports because we're talking about binary ARV. In the financials, we talk about up or down. In sports, they might talk about over, under, team A, team B, but we're just going to talk about up or down. But up or down for financials needs to be better defined. And the way we do it, hold on, Silva, I'm going to mute you. The way we do it is with stops and limits. So the tasking includes specific stop or limit, which is associated with the meaning of up or down. Now, how in more detail do indeed we do this? Well, it's really very simple. Since it's binary ARV, we're asking for up or down. We have two possible targets. These possible targets are not known at remote viewing time. They are blind. They are chosen randomly from the computer. In fact, after you submit your transcripts, totally precognitive. But there are two possible targets. So guess what? One of these possible targets is associated with up. The other is associated with down. The actual target that you will see at feedback time, the one and only that you will see at feedback time, will always, in caps, be associated with what actually happens, up or down, period. So that's how the one target is chosen, based on an up and down price move in whatever financial we are talking about. And you'll actually see an example for that over a month. Usually we do this within a day. But the point, I hope, is clear. That's what ARV is, in fact, all about. Binary. The judge is the one who makes the decision. You simply, as a remote viewer, describe and sketch what you're going to see at feedback time. And to the extent you get a good description, he makes a good decision here. Now, what happens between the analysis and judging? You get, and often and most of the time, we have multiple transcripts. And so the judge is in a position to make an up or down decision, or you might, in fact, make it on your own. And if you wish, and a lot of people actually don't actually put in, they just like the experience of doing ARV. But some people, and certainly we now, will, unless it's a pass, put in a trade. So in between here, and after we know it's up or down, there's going to be an investment put in, and then the event occurs. So it's right in here where the investment is made between the analysis and judging and the feedback session. Okay, so in linear time, obviously this goes between those two. Now, I've just gone through a description of things in linear time. I believe quite strongly that in what we're doing, which is purposeful precognition, as opposed to like a you get a call and it might be somebody you haven't heard from for 30 years and you haven't even thought about him for 20 years, and yet his name pops in and bang, the phone rings. And there are plenty of times where things like that happen. But we're doing this on purpose. And the way we're doing it, with the emphasis on feedback, because that's where the truth is, I believe it is really appropriate to think of precognition as beginning with the feedback session. The reality of precognition shows that our normal linear time conceptions of time are in fact not right. The cause coming before the effect is not what happens in precognition. In precognition, you can view the feedback session as causing, let's say, information to be shared with you at your remote viewing session. And now there are scientific conferences which are called retrocausality, which are taking that all into account. And they're discussing it. And, you know, some of our people talk there. And retrocausality is really just a name for precognition, because it's the entangling with the remote viewing session and the later feedback session. So the feedback session is where you can view ARV as beginning. Then earlier in linear time is when the entanglement comes into play, and your cue is always describe and or sketch your, and we use 6-digit, we call them either coordinates or target reference numbers, but it's the tag for this particular target. So we want to identify this one. We encourage people to do at least one a week. We actually think people should be doing more than that, and a lot of people, in fact, are doing 5 a week. Now, let's talk a little bit about what the target is. The feedback target is what we refer to as a photosite. And it's a photosite because it refers to the particular site location at the particular time the photo was taken. So yes, you will be seeing a photo here, but consciousness is expected to gather information from the photo, and not only colors and shapes, but it can get much more than that. It could get, for example, and so your consciousness effectively could move to the site at the time the photo was taken and describe what can be readily verified or inferred from the photo. So if it's a waterfall, you can hear the sounds. I'm remembering a wonderful picture of a beekeeper who was covered with bees, and on one person's transcript, all over it, he wrote buzz, buzz, buzz. He was getting the sounds. Lots of times you might get smells. All of your physical senses from your nervous system is what is available to you when you do remote viewing. Your subconscious, maybe your higher self, something deeper than your normal ego intellectual self certainly is able to get information from the feedback target. So that includes visual, sound, smells, taste, tactile sensations, emotions, ideas. And I want to emphasize what I call first impression gestalts, FIGs, because these often come in early. Not always, but they often come in early. They're the big picture thing. You know, without the words here, you might get water. You might even get multiple or 3, or might get brown. just the big picture stuff that comes in, and I like to call those first impression gestalts. And we'll be talking actually more about that. So I'm hoping you agree that the idea is easy, and doing it, like beginner's luck and all that happens so marvelously in spades. I mean, I believe almost everybody can do this. Doing it reliably takes practice, practice, practice. Like a doctor has a practice, and no matter how long they're in their business, they're always doing more learning, and they're getting better and better and more refined at what they're doing. Same thing is true in ARV. Okay, let's go at this again in another way. And I want to let you know remote viewing is indeed very unique to each viewer. This is a very personal, and I have to add fun, and personally deepening endeavor. So I'm about to give you a little exercise here. And you're about to describe and sketch a photo. I'm going to show it to you for a short period of time. So why don't you just get some paper and pen, and this is not precognition. This is something just to give you a feeling on how you might describe and sketch something, but you're going to see it for a short period of time. And, one of the reasons for doing this is because what you tend to get during short periods of time are these first impression gestalts, but you might get enough to draw a sketch of some or all of what it is, get some words. Okay, are you ready? I'm about to do it now. 3, 2, 1. Okay, did you see that? That actually lasted, I thought, pretty long. Why don't you put in the chat box what you saw? Let's see what different people got, and look at your sketch. Yeah, that was there too long. There was actually something happened that wasn't actually supposed to be shorter than that. But yeah, you picked up the full yellow helicopter because it was there way too long. And I apologize for that. It turns out in remote viewing as well as very good. Yep, very good. Generally, when you remote view, you don't name things. So you use these kind of descriptor words. They're the kind of words which are so deeply ingrained with you because you see them all the time, you use them all the time. They get ingrained in you when you're relatively young. And these are the kind of things that come up. To name it as you did here, and again, I apologize for showing that as wrong, but you can see the kind of words. Yeah, okay, very good. And look at the words you have here. The colors, certainly yellow is in here. Red, there might even have been a smell associated with that. since it was in the air. Indeed, it is a helicopter. Sometimes there might be targets which have a taste associated with them. Hot or cold, you might pick up the temperatures. You get this sometimes through your body, sometimes the words come in, but sometimes it comes in through the body. Look at all the kind of sounds you can get, metallic. The textures can certainly be metal. The dimensions, geometry, all of this, you get motion. I don't know if any of you got a feeling for motion. Yeah, some of you, the white clouds, very good. Notice the white clouds, gestalt-like, airborne. Yep. Okay. I'm going to, and then of course you can get aesthetic impacts. You might feel afraid, and there's a distinction in that there might be people in a scene that are afraid or happy. They might be really excited or happy, or it might be your reaction to the picture. And as you do this more and more, you'll be able to pick up the difference between those. Okay. I'm going to show this to you again. Let's see if it's actually, this time it's supposed to be longer. Let's see what happens this time. Okay, that time it flashed. Did you pick up anything different? Those of you who maybe didn't get everything, did you pick up sub-elements, more detail? Okay, that time you missed it. Okay, and that the first one was supposed to be like that. Okay, you did not. Okay, well, that's how the first one. In fact, let me see if I can go back. Take a look again this time. It's going to flash. See if you can pick up something different. For example, did you see rotors? I got round hilly surface before seeing the helicopter image. Okay. Okay, now let's take a longer look at it. So this is the helicopter indeed. Notice in addition to the obvious yellow, there's a lot of white. Some of you picked up the clouds, and interestingly enough, picked up the clouds and not the helicopter. And that's typical of remote viewing when a lot of people do the same targets. It's just so interesting that different people will pick up different aspects of it. But there's also some red in here besides the yellow and the white, which are clearly the dominant gestalt-like colors. Now let me show you what a remote viewer did on this. Now this is precognitive, okay? Again, using the kind of low-level words, the sketches, well, the low-level words, first impression was open and light yellow. Not bad, right? A lot of vertical lines. And indeed, there are indeed lots of verticals here, down here as well. And as I recall here, not only vertical lines, but white is associated with that, and it's said to be important. So that's what they picked up. Now for sound, lots of times there's no sound, but got honk here. That wasn't right on, but I would give a partial credit for that. And for smell of smoke, here's exhaust. If you move to that site, you might very well have that. Don't know about the temperature. Green is off. I don't see any blue either. Now, motion is interesting. Got marching. As a judge, I would give at least partial credit. Clearly picked up that there was motion associated with this. Radiant, tall, maybe would have preferred wide, but certainly flat. And looking down, looks okay. Outdoors, daylight. So there was an awful lot of good matches in here and some misses, which is pretty typical. But I think you can see that there were enough that you would probably be willing, and we did trade on this and got a hit. In fact, this is the judged transcript. So the A's and B's, remember there are two possible ones. Trying to show you the way ARV works. There were two possible targets. In the judging phase, I put either a big A or sometimes a little a. There was a little a there because I thought this looked like the front. I happened to judge that. Here are structural is a big A. Float, this was float down. Got the red, which was kind of cool. People red. Yeah, here, that was here. I just didn't point that out before. But indeed, it's the same transcript. Got people red. You can see all the A's. And judged it, and on our 0 to 7 scale, it turned out to be a 4. I'm going to go over how we do the judging later. My point here is the way we recommend doing judging is going over every element and marking it with a big A, a little a if you're not so sure how strong it should be, or a big B if it's the B target, or a little b, or nothing. Some things like here, celebration, event, didn't match either one that we could tell, you know, that was clearly verifiable from the photo. So I wanted you all to just get this feel. You go over it element by element by element. And so during the feedback session, the judge and the remote viewer, if you like, and I actually recommend this, can meet. Now, if you do self-judging, that's easy. If you do independent judging, if somebody else judges your transcripts, I really recommend that you get together with them and then you can discuss this. So you have the transcript and the judging. Okay. Questions, comments? If you have any questions, you can turn on your mic or put it in the chat box. Yep, blue sky would definitely be something that would match. Even blue. Now see, and that's interesting. And I'm actually going to show you this later. Notice when I judge this, that sky is blue. I did not mark that for A. And this is A. This was the hit. In fact, this says very nice hit. I missed it. That's one of the reasons it's good to, at feedback time, to go back and review this, because you'll just find things you missed. That was an obvious one I missed. Oh, here, I did write it here. And there's a star here. You see the 3 stars? Look at the star there. I missed that. And marching, I probably should have given that the small b. So I'm not perfect yet. And by doing this more and more, and I do see myself getting better and better at picking off a lot of good stuff. Okay, any questions? Structure is the tail, not the front. Well, I looked at this whole thing as being a structure. And that's one of the things which makes this personal. And when you work with an independent judge, there are a lot of words that you need to better define. You know, what do you mean exactly by a structure? Does it have to be man-made? Can it be a natural heavy structure? Most of the time, and I take structure to be a man-made structure, but not everybody does. The word light, I wasn't sure what she meant by that. Was this like, this is floating, so it's light, so I gave it a little a. Judging turns out to be A, challenging, interesting, and B, very important. Because notice, it's the judging that makes the decision on whether you invest or not. Other questions, comments? Okay, so let me now get into, I mean, this whole thing with precognition, retrocausality, blowing the whole concept of time. I'm a physicist, and one of the reasons I was always fascinated by this was it does just that. It blows the whole normal physics concept of cause and effect, of time going linearly forward. And we know that's just not true. So there's something very deep going on, and I would like to give you my interpretation of that, which indeed includes a personal higher self for each of us. So let's talk about the higher self and a definition. The higher self, and you know, there are a lot of definitions and there are a lot of spiritual approaches out there, but this is the one that I'm going to share with you that captures it, I think, appropriately. The higher self is also known as a transcendental self, or Purusha in Sanskrit. It is considered the divine self and part of the cosmic consciousness by some. Cosmic consciousness, divine self, pretty high-level spiritual kind of words. Yogis seek to unite the lower self, ego, and again, whenever we use this word, we use it in a very positive sense. The ego is what gets you through your day-to-day living. It's very closely connected to your intellect, right? So, but that's your lower self, and it's wanting to unite that with the higher self through their spiritual practice, creating balance and oneness within. I think that's so beautiful. And in ARV, that's just what you're trying to do. When you're doing your remote viewing and your feedback session, you're really using your higher self and trying to combine them with your ego, which is part of what's involved in doing the transcript, right? You're writing something down, you're doing that in the physical world, and yet you're trying to combine that with the non-physical. So there's the link if anybody wants to find it. Okay, now this is done in a pretty non-personal way. I want to see if I can make this more personal, meaningful, and useful to you using what is certainly my favorite expression. It's the foundation for all of our workshops and webinars now, which is the fact that consciousness is fundamental. And it turns out the physicists who were involved in quantum mechanics and were trying to figure out the weirdness associated with it, with things being able to connect up faster than the speed of light. Einstein had a lot of trouble with it. They were the ones who said you could not get behind consciousness, that consciousness is fundamental. So I'm going to give you a model with some ideas. The model is in a format which is different, but frankly, the ideas are not. The ideas sort of go way back, but not quite in this form. But I'm hoping this will illuminate a lot of this for you. And it begins with the idea that consciousness is fundamental. And this will be the universe of collective consciousness model. So let's say the blue here is the physical, spiritual universe containing everything, and I mean everything, consciousness touches. If consciousness is fundamental, that's what we're talking about, okay? So everything consciousness touches in all space-time plus non-physical, think spiritual here, but some people don't like that word, so non-physical reality. So this is equivalent to all that is, the Matrix, Akashic records. You know, there are a lot of words in a lot of different spiritual traditions, and this is capturing that, okay? Now, what's very interesting about this, and when I say everything, you just have to understand, well, I'll say more about that. I mean everything, anything you can think of, ideas, everything. Okay, and this is why you have to ignore the outer boundary, since there is no outside to this circle. Because if you were to postulate, think about, oh yeah, but what about X? It should be outside. Well, as soon as you thought about X, it's inside, right? Because consciousness touched it. It was your consciousness that touched it. Anybody else's consciousness anywhere else in the universe that is postulating something that's outside, it can't be outside. So this is a circle without a boundary. It's actually very much like our physical universe, right? There's no wall at the end of our physical universe, and there's nothing outside. There's no boundaries at all, outside or inside this circle. So this is maybe like a Zen thing, a circle without a boundary. But I think you get the idea. Now, no boundary. So this circle, this universe, collective consciousness in here, what does this imply? Well, it implies a unique kind of oneness, a unique kind of harmony. I mean, it's just there. It's got everything in it, including the physical universe, including the concept of time. Now, here's where I think the really important connection with our lives in the physical universe comes. If this is the basic, the deepest part of everything, and yet what happens from this in here, and I'm about to show you next. So, but first I want to make sure you get that this is filled with ideas, concepts, information. Really, it's non-physical. The physical world is not in there. But all information from the past, present, and the future is in there, and outside time, since time is a thing in here. And let me now talk a little bit about things. What happens when you try to bring a thing out, like time, like the physical universe, right? Like you, like an electron, any specific thing, to try to separate it from this circle without a boundary, from the UCC? Well, you can't separate it completely. So I'm saying, well, then it has to have something like a fuzzy boundary. Do I know exactly what that means? No, but I know it has to have a fuzzy boundary because it can't be perfectly crisp and have a boundary. So if it doesn't have a boundary, guess what we've just introduced? We've introduced a kind of fuzziness, a kind of uncertainty. So I don't care what you bring out. Certainly the concept of time has lots of fuzziness about it, and virtually everything you bring out of here has an element of fuzziness about it. It's just not a standalone, unique thing that you can clearly define. And there's one other thing that comes out of this idea, and that is an entanglement of this thing. You're trying to bring it out from the UCC, and so you're trying to separate it, but yet it's still in the UCC. So there's like an entanglement of this thing, whatever it is, with the UCC, right? You can't really separate it, so it's still in there, and yet here you are trying to separate it. Now, how do you do that in a way which in the physical world with time, seems, permanent? Well, I claim this introduces at the most fundamental level something which I want to call an entanglement energy. So entanglement energy is needed. Otherwise, it wouldn't be out here, and you wouldn't have this ability to see it and recognize it as a thing. So this entanglement energy is really what makes up what I call a communication channel with the raw information in the UCC and the experience, the consciousness experience that you have of this thing that you bring out, okay? And notice there's another way of looking at this, which I think is quite meaningful, and that is you need energy to maintain this illusion of separateness. I mean, you look at it as a separate thing, but if the UCC idea is right, it's really not. So it's actually an illusion, and it is not a separate thing because it really goes back to this universe of collective consciousness. Okay, let's see if I can even make this personal. Let's get a little bit more personal. One of the big things in each of our personal lives is your personal conscious now moment, your experience of the now moment. Well, guess what? Your now moment, hopefully you're hearing a little clapping. Each one of those clappings and the series of clappings are like a now moment. How long does it last? Well, I don't know exactly, but what I do know for sure is I'm having a personal experience. I'm looking at my screen. I happen to be looking around my room now. That was a very personal experience to me, but it's gone now. I'm having another now moment experience right now, and so are you. The clapping experience is gone. But each of those now moments are in this universal collective consciousness. And I believe they are, in some sense, the fundamental makeup in our personal physical reality. They're the thing I know about, in a way, the most. There is no doubt about the reality of my conscious moment to me. That's what makes it so personal. I have memories. And we all know our memories are not perfect. I have memories of the future. That's my precognition. Those two are not perfect. But I have this now moment, which I'm experiencing, and in many ways it is perfect. I mean, I know it right now. Okay, so let's now see if we can connect this with the subconscious mind and your higher self. Remember, we were going to talk about that. So your conscious mind, this now conscious moment, which seems to move through time, it does move through time, but what you experience it as is a moment by moment, is this thing in here. Well, this higher self is also a thing in here. So we can talk and see if we can illuminate this a bit better. But I noticed just by bringing these out as ideas, they have their own fuzzy boundaries, which are the communication channel, goes back to the UCC. So the conscious mind is certainly a thing. I know it exists. And the higher self is a thing. Hey, we just went through a definition of it. But, you know, obviously we'd like to get maybe more details and how does it fit in and how personal is it really? One of the things which I hope you will really get out of this is how important it is for you, each of us, to recognize that you define you. And we do this in multiple ways. You know, we do have like multiple personalities inside us, which are more dominant at one time or another. But if we're trying to get to some sort of bigger picture of you and an understanding of which you is operating in any specific now moment, let's talk about it at sort of that higher level. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong, and a lot of people do this. They will have a holistic, positive view of the living normal life, and it's directly connected to the UCC. And, you know, let's view that as the normal ego you kind of definition. And that might lead, if they think about it further, and this is a kind of rather normal way, unusual way of doing it. They say, okay, yeah, I've got a physical part, and it's got a lot of sub-elements, and I've got a mental, emotional, and spiritual part. Okay, so that encompasses the way I think of myself as a you. Notice the black here shows that this is a fuzzy boundary, and the definition of your physical body has fuzzy boundaries. Same with emotional, spiritual, mental. That's one way of looking at you. Here's another way, and I want to, of course, emphasize now the now moment conscious you. If you start thinking more and more about what's going on in your now moments, where you have your conscious awareness. I mean, conscious is kind of amazing, but you really have to get that it's you who are aware that you are conscious. I mean, that's remarkable. That's why consciousness is fundamental. We can't explain that. It's fundamental. And in the moment, this is where your intentions, attentions, hopefully confident expectations, choices, all these things happen in your now conscious moment. So if we now want to break up this now moment, consciousness, we can break it up into two parts. Okay, so this is you, but now we're looking at you more from a now moment perspective. We can now say, hey, here is the subconscious mind, which obviously we talk about a lot, And I want to put the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual all in there. Now, this is kind of my choice. I do not want to put it in the conscious mind because I want that in my perception of how I like to think how this all works. And you may not. Some of you may decide, you know what, I want to think of this as maybe being the spiritual in here. It's kind of fuzzy. Okay. Remember, this is all going to have to come down to you defining you. But I feel this is a reasonable way to do it. The conscious mind, I want to reserve for these now moments, the awareness of what's going on in the now. And my subconscious mind is what's connected to the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. It's connected to time. You know, my conscious mind, its awareness, you know, I might be looking at a clock, but that doesn't have a duration or anything like that associated with it. It's the subconscious mind that is going to have to give me a sense of what a minute is, okay? Because there are a lot of conscious aware moments in a minute, in an hour, in a day, in your life. Okay, so these are two different things, and I like to break it up in this way. And until now, I and others have mostly been saying, okay, ask your subconscious mind. And all that works because the subconscious mind is connected to everything, the spiritual, the non-physical. It goes down to the UCC. It's connected to all the information. And so you can get information from the future from your subconscious mind. No problem with that. Let's look at another way of doing the exact same thing where the now moment conscious you is important, but I've now redefined in terms of my thinking. So this is indeed another way of looking at you. All these are you. Another way of looking at you is the conscious mind remains the same, but notice I brought in the higher self. I now want to say the spiritual, which was contained totally in the subconscious mind in this view, can be thought of as a spiritual aspect in the UCC. So this is my personal higher self, and then the subconscious still has the physical, the mental, the emotional. All connected to the UCC, all connected to each other through their individual entanglement energies. When I think of them coming out this way, they all have different EEs. And boy, don't ask me to define them in any quantitative way. I certainly can't do that. I hope someday some people will be able to do that. But this way of looking at you brings in the higher self clearly, and that's why we're doing it in a spiritual, non-physical way. So when I talk about mental here and emotional, we're talking about the way it's experienced in the body. Here we're talking about the non-physical aspect of it. So we experience love. That is really a strong kind of emotion. And yet the love in a much bigger sense is spiritual. And these are often, all three of these are often strongly entangled, but they have a different sense. when you're thinking of the spiritual in the deepest sense, it's like coming from the higher self, and it just connected. Well, I don't know how to say it. You know, when you start talking spiritual, it's super, super deep, and it shares feelings of like love with the subconscious mind. And then through the subconscious mind, you get to experience it with the conscious mind. But these have different definitions and different feelings about them. Okay, let's look at the higher self now and try to break it up a little more. I hope you're seeing this as fun, and you can do stuff like this on your own in terms of how you view this stuff, starting from the very, very basics, the thing you know the most, your conscious now moments. But what do I see as being in your higher self, my higher self? Well, first of all the non-physical I want to put in the higher self. Okay, that's sort of what I mean by spiritual. But I also want to break out this thing which I'm willing to call a soul, a part of me living now, which is non-physical and which will live on after death. I'll put that in my higher self. All of these things are outside of space and time. The idea of love, I mean, that's deep in the UCC, non-physical. Wisdom, the whole idea of wisdom, beauty, joy, you know, there are other kind of big picture words. And then this idea of entanglement energy. It's a connector, but it starts, I believe, with the higher self and then connects up with the physical world in a way which is truly mysterious. Mysteries belong in here too. Okay, now, so I hope you have a sense of all that. And we've made this personal to you, but we need to recognize that in the UCC, your higher self is in there, but guess what? There are many other higher selves in there as well. So it goes even higher with this model. If you put all the higher personal selves together, right? That's an idea. You got a sense of that, right? You had a sense of your higher self. Well, you can get a sense even bigger than that of all the higher personal selves. Notice I keep making it personal because the thing which we know with the most fidelity, I don't know what the best words to use are, is this now conscious moment. I cannot doubt that. And so I want to build up from that. And so others have that as well. And others have their higher selves as well. But that's still within the UCC because I'm bringing this out as a separate thing. Now, yes, I can go even higher to a divine self. And this could be a personal divine self. And you can go even higher to who knows what, non-divine. But if you're thinking about it, it's in the UCC, but it's not the UCC. So there's always more. And that's so important to remember. Hopefully it makes us a lot more humble than we usually are. Okay, so I brought this from what you know from shore up to a pretty high spiritual-like level, talking about it in an intellectual way, because that's all we can do when we talk. But hopefully it gives you some depth and will help you go deeper. And let's talk about what that means. Yeah, spiritual stuff is great. I also want to live in this physical world and do ARV. I have said for many, many, many years that I want 1 foot in the spiritual and 1 foot in the physical. A lot of spiritual traditions try to get you into the pure spiritual, which is great. But right now, while I'm living in the physical, I want to have a foot in both. So is there a way this can assist each of us in ARV? Now, this is the idea that I think can do that. Notice your remote viewing session, again being personal, your remote viewing session, your feedback session, or in the UCC. It's got nothing to do with time. You're experiencing your set of conscious moments, and you're the one who gives the meaning to what your remote viewing session was and all those conscious moments. That's why we have you put your coordinate down there and write end of session. That kind of defines your remote viewing session with a fuzzy boundary. Well, the same thing for your feedback session. You start it, it has an end, and both of these being down there, these are entangled. And that entanglement can be enhanced. Now, where might that enhancement come from? And you should know, and I'm just not going to get into quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics defines entanglement among physical things, particles, small particles mostly, and they have all kinds of theorems on what you do to enhance them. They do not include consciousness, but we're more fundamental than that. So consciousness, shining this up, intention, expectation, attention, all of those things, belief systems, all the things which you believe can enhance this entanglement will enhance this entanglement. Now, up to this point, I've been using, and I often still will simply go back to the conscious mind, subconscious mind idea. But I'm beginning now to try to work myself into using the now moment conscious you with the higher self. Okay? Which one of the kinds of things we've talked about do you feel most comfortable being in and paying attention to the fact that you're doing that on purpose in the moment? When you do your remote viewing and you do your cool down, and some people don't do cool down, but nevertheless, you should have a sense that you're getting this information from some part of a deeper you. Does it feel comfortable that it's coming from a divine self, that it's helping? Terrific. All of these can certainly be participants in enhancing this. And meditating, trying to make these connections, I believe will assist you in getting better and better at this. I'm putting out this model for just that reason, so that indeed you might, if it resonates with you, use it to improve your ARV and increase the entanglement between your remote viewing session and your feedback session. And in doing so, I believe that will indeed deepen you. Ultimately, it is all about you. Today, you are you. That is truer than true. There's no one alive who is youer than you. Okay, it's all about you. It's all about you. However, if you live your life as if everything is about you, you will be left with just that, just you. So you know it's the other point of view that it's not all about you. And that's valid, and that's in the UCC as well. And I believe all of us understand that. We understand that other people have their own personal consciousness and their own personal higher selves. And what's amazing is that we all get to interact. Now watch this one. Me and you is friends. You smile, I smile. You hurt, I hurt. You cry, I cry. You jump off bridge, I gonna miss your emails. Isn't that great? I love the internet. I love the internet. And that says a lot. We are all interconnected, and yet we all have our own personal lives and consciousness. So it is all about each of us as an individual conscious being. In each of us, there's a little of all of us. Remember, the UCC connects everything. That's where the harmony is. It's when we bring things out and think of them as being separate, that there's this illusion of separateness. But deep down, there's an ultimate harmony. So, trying to wind this up a bit, it is an inside job. You define you. And the raw materials are your conscious now moments. Pay attention to them. This is the most real of the real for you, your conscious moments. Now, how do these get entangled in the UCC? You do the entangling in your now moments. You entangle various now moments with your emotions, your intellect, the meaning, strength that you associate with all this. Hey, I can only use words and I can only give you my understanding. You are going to, if you spend some time contemplating this sort of stuff, and I hope you do, it'll go deeper than the words. It's something that you get, something that you grok. Some of you know that word deeply, that you just do. And it gets entangled, but it gets all entangled down at these very deep levels in the UCC. And there's this similarity to other elements that add strength to it. So I think entanglement has to do with similarity as well. That's at least my sense of it. But they're also unknown unknowns. And this is a biggie. Accept responsibility for you. You are down in the UCC. One of the things which has been with you are the vibrations of your DNA, for example, which started at your moment of conception. That's the similarity. You know, you in the UCC with every one of your now moments have had this DNA vibrational thing going on, and the UCC sort of connects all that to make you. But all of it is there now with that vibration, those vibrations. Listen to silence. It has so much to say. When I am silent, I have thunder hidden inside. These are all Rumi. The quieter you become, the more you are able to hear. And I think all of that is referring to being sort of silent in the sense of the outside world and listening to the inside, which is silent compared to the outside, but has so much to say in the sense of thunder hidden in the inside. One last one. You and the universe. So here's the UCC. Here you are, and you're in there. You're connected to everything. Most of the time, you bring yourself out as a separate entity. So here you are, bringing yourself out as a separate entity. But you want to know something? The UCC, which notice it's got circle about it, a fuzzy boundary about it, because we're talking about it as something which is separate, and that's the best we can do as a you. But nevertheless, from your perspective, the UCC is indeed there with a fuzzy boundary. And I want to give you a quote now from Skip Atwater. It was when I was at the Monroe Institute and doing workshops with Skip. I think, as you all know, every time I do a workshop or something, I always have to develop my ideas further. This is just what I do. I'm always going to be growing personally myself. So this, everything you've seen here, well, the very basics of it started back with the Monroe Institute. I've developed it since then. But this is something which comes from way back at the Monroe Institute days. And this is a quote from Skip. And remember, he initiated and headed the remote viewing armament unit at Fort Meade. And he said, some say that we pass from spirit into the physical at birth, and conversely, pass from the physical world into spirit at death. I say that we never pass from the spirit. Okay, so that's my take on this idea of higher consciousness, divine self, the most spiritual I know how to do in an intellectual way. And we're actually a little ahead of schedule, so please give me some questions, comments. Dumbest thing I ever heard of, whatever you'd like to say. Turn on your mic or put it in the chat box. Thank you, Derek. The webinar started an hour and 15 minutes ago. Yes, thank you, Jonathan. Yes, I think that's very important because the higher self, the soul, is outside of space and time. And yet it's connected to your physical life. And that's one way some people consider the information coming through. Again, if you want to make it so individualized, which you don't have to do, just take the information, but appreciating that it might come from your soul, your personal divine self, a higher divine self, whatever, I think is very helpful. Certainly want to have a sense of it coming from outside your normal ego intellectual self. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to mute you. Let's move on to feedback. Now, as I've indicated earlier, feedback is extraordinarily important. ARV begins with the feedback session. That is the truth point. That's the place you can really light things up and get the entanglement to be the strongest. So let's talk about the month ago tasking that we're going to do feedback for first. In our system for your newbies, everything starts with a tasking email. Everything is done over the internet. Everything is saved on our servers. So we have records which you can use to help you, which contain all the information which you put in. Your transcripts are up there. Your hit rates up there based on your various predictions. But it begins with a tasking email like this one. And there's always a group name. We are Webinar Workshop. This was sent out on the 3rd, and the transcripts were due on that day. And here is what the event was defined as. It was defined as being between April 3rd and May 7th. Now, I made a mistake. My intention, and this is what I'm going to go by, Joe McMonagle has talked about this a lot, that it's the tasker's intention, deep intention. Even if he says it wrong, it's his deep intention that matters. My intention was to go to the day before this webinar so we could do the feedback today. So that's what we're going to do, but this is nevertheless what I wrote, and most of the time the event here will be accurate, including the start date of the event, which is in this case when the event ended and when the transcripts are due. And then all you do is click on the link. So once you get this, it's very easy to proceed from there. So all you do is click on the link. We've made this online protocol really very simple. That was the intent. You click on that link, and we're going to do that later, and you will get the a tasking number and all that, but I don't want to talk about that now since we're in the feedback mode. You also get, after everybody's prediction is in, and if you remember, after the judging and before the feedback is when we did the prediction, and there is a prediction email that was sent out. So here's a prediction email, and for that prediction, we predicted yes. So the question was, will SPY move up? And in this case, it was between two dates. There was no stop or limit. And the answer was yes, and period. Now, here's what actually happened. The price change indeed is up. April 3rd is here, and this is the SPY, which is what we were looking for. These are what are called hourly candles. The height shows the high of the day and the low of the day. And if it's red, it opened at the top and closed at the bottom. And if it's blue, it opened here and closed there. But you don't have to worry about any of this. In fact, you don't have to know anything about the market to do ARV. But some of you do, and you can see this is an upward moving trend, just like the Dow, and it's gone up substantially, and I suspect by the 7th it will still be up substantially. So the answer was yes. So we know that. Now, here again, I'm just emphasizing, because we're about to get into feedback. I think some of you, in fact, did do sessions. And again, purposeful precognition begins with this feedback session. And this is you in your sort of psi-you state connected to some higher inner you. And precognition begins with this feedback. Here's a statement I found, which I think is wonderful. And that's why I put it here. Your subconscious mind is 3,000 times more powerful than your conscious mind. And this comes from the Mind's Journal. I know nothing about it. I like the statement, and I think it's probably an underestimate. I think your subconscious mind, if you break ourselves up into subconscious mind and ego mind, your subconscious mind is much more powerful than that. And then before we go further, this is just such a wonderful quote. I want to read it again. Some of you maybe have not seen it before. One of the most surprising discoveries of modern physics is that objects aren't as separate as they may seem. When you drill down into the core of even the most solid-looking material, separateness dissolves. All that remains, like the smile of the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland, are relationships, entanglements, extending curiously throughout space and time. These connections were predicted by quantum theory and were called spooky action at a distance by Albert Einstein, one of the founders of Albert Einstein, who actually didn't believe it. That's why he called it spooky action at a distance. One of the founders of quantum theory, Schrodinger, dubbed this peculiarity entanglement, saying, I would not call that entanglement one, but rather the characteristic trait of quantum mechanics. So it's all about entanglement and you. Oh, wait, Andrea, I need to turn you off. Okay. Okay, so the feedback email, again, as you can see, everything comes from feedback email. And this is a copy of the one I sent out today. Those of you who happen to be in this group already have this, and some of you may have already started doing your feedback. But for your newbies, you would get one like this, and I'll put your newbies in this group for the next one if you care to join us. And you can see it repeats the event, and then here is a link. And all you do is you click a link and you enter your email address. So when you click that link, this will come up, and it wants your email address because everybody has their own unique feedback target. So you would click on this link, this would come up. I thought, let's see, okay. Well, let me do it. Interesting. I think, no, that's not live. I had it live. Huh. Okay, I'm going to have to find it. Sorry. Some of you I know would like to start. And what I want to do is give you this link so you can start. And I obviously made a little bit of a mistake. Sorry about that. But those of you who want to do your feedback, you know, that's everybody but the newbies. Let me get that for you. Okay, I can't get it from there. You know what? I'll get it from the email. Okay, these numbers happen to be what makes this prediction unique. You don't have to worry about that. But notice I'm just highlighting it so I can copy it into the chat box. In fact, I can click on it from here just like I'd want you to do, and it comes up just like I indicated. And you then would put your email address in here. But for those of you who want to start, so here it is. Let me put it in the chat box. Okay. Okay, so you can click that link just as if it had been in your email. And those of you that did a session last time can do it now, and then we can talk about it a little later. But for your newbies and those of you that did not do a session, you can see how easy it is. And you will get then the feedback for your own personal session. Now, what I want to do here is another example. You remember this. You quickly did it. And during your feedback session, you will have your transcript and the correct picture in front of you. And your judging will have already been done. So you will be able to look at all of this and learn from it. The feedback sessions are the time when you can do the most in terms of deep learning. Celebrate what you did well. The first impression gestalts, and I'm going to talk about that a little later when we do judging, and we will do prediction and judging, are particularly important, and here I happen to circle them. Red, people was really big here. Happened to get the red with the people, so I made that part of it, but the people was important. The structural was important. The light yellow and open was important. Vertical lines pretty much captured most of this. Did not say things like clouds. I ended off giving it from a scale of 0 to 1 in terms of the gestalts, a 0.75. And we'll talk about this formula later. But they got half of the elements, which you look at again during your feedback session and really celebrate the ones that you got and re-experience how they felt when you got them right. And then on a new sheet of paper, you can redo those. And then for feedback, you add something. You do not a trace, but you do kind of a quick sketch. You know, you would just do a quick sketch of this, put some stuff down here, the kind of stuff you would do your remote viewing session. Most of us, 99.9% of us, get pieces of the structure. You might do the rotor separating, a rotating rotor. for example, and then you might try to do the body and you might do the tail. But you might do a sketch on a new sheet of paper and then repeat the good words and then add the words you missed. Puffy. Puffy would have been a good thing to say here, or fluffy. And get into the feeling of what puffy feels like and what fluffy feels like. So you're training. It's like you're building up a communication channel. You're teaching a language to your subconscious. And it's similarly teaching you a language. It's saying, hey, I tried, like with the honk. I told you there was a sound there. Thank you for giving me credit for that. You know what? That was really good. And yeah, I might try to go for whirl or worry next time. But you know what? Hank was darn good. And you say that to yourself. I'm quite happy with Hank and smoke. Thank you, sub. So that's the kind of way you want to do the feedback sessions. Outdoors. Yes, wonderful, sub. Gee, I wish I had sketched something like this, and you just draw some quick down lines and overlines. And hey, nice with the verticals. And then you write end of session and the time, and that ends your feedback session. It's good to do it with another person because it helps find things that you miss, but definitely pay attention and do your feedback sessions. Are they important? I believe they're very important, as you heard me say over and over again, but let me give you an example. When at the Stanford research, now this was back in the mid-1970s and forward for 10, 15 years, they continued to do what were called outbounder experiments. They had a person leave SRI, and all they knew was that they were going to go to a site within a half an hour drive of SRI. Not until they got out in the car did they randomly choose one of like 100 envelopes to see where they were going to go. Okay, so they would go out to that site, back in SRI. In fact, Russell Targ mostly would be working with the remote viewer, and the remote viewer would be putting together the transcript. And they did this with precognition as well as kind of real time. But when they were at the target, they took lots of time and energy being at the target, okay? When they did their feedback, the outbounder would go and spend a lot of time there, okay? This is not clear, and I'm going to have to change that. So the outbounder would go there and spend a lot of time. But then the remote viewer would be taken to the feedback site, and he would then look at that site and his transcript and be quite happy with all the matches. And everybody, the person who was the outbounder as well as the viewer, would all meet, and they would all be there, and they were extraordinarily successful. Odds 1 out of 1,000,000 or more. Okay, I'm going to fix that, but I hope you understand the idea. The outbounder went there, he experienced it without any discussion, of course, with the remote viewer. Then the remote viewer would go out and see it with his transcript, and it turned out independent judges would choose generally out of 9 possible targets, and they considered it a success if they were ranked number 1 out of 9. And their hit rate was high at the level of 1 out of several millions. So it worked extraordinarily well in terms of getting #1 hits. Now, Joe McMonagle basically says it's all psychological, and, be happy that you're playing this wonderful, deep, I almost said game, and in a way it's a journey game. It's a fun game. No problem thinking of it as a game where you're learning, like other kinds of mind games. Sometimes this is compared to a mental martial art or sport, but it's all psychological, and it's an inside job. And Galileo, a very great early scientist, said you cannot teach a man anything. You can only help him find it within himself. So hopefully things which I've said and others have said to you get you in touch and resonate with the deep part of you and assist you in growing. Okay, before we do a new prediction, does anybody here have a feedback session they would like to share or talk about? Yeah, most people don't, and that's why I showed this. This is just a really good a good example of what other people might indeed show, if indeed they could send to me, which I have had them do in the past, the actual judged transcript. Okay. Sylvia, do you have a feedback session? No. Sylvia, do you want to talk? No? Okay, I'm going to mute you. Okay. Okay, so this is the example of the feedback. Let's now start it for next month. Okay, so let's do a new prediction. So this is the new prediction, and the prediction, and notice again, it's the workshop. You're hopefully all are in one or more of our prediction groups. If you're not, send me an email and I'll make sure you get put in one or more. Full members can be in as many as they want. Free members can be in one group. Carve group is doing 2 predictions a week. Okay, so the new prediction is will SPY, which is basically moves with the Standard & Poor 500. So it's a big index. It turns out divided by 10. Will it again move up? So it's a yes or no question between today and June 4th. And my next Wednesday is indeed going to be June 5th. So this will go between today and a day before the next first Wednesday webinar. And this would be the link to press. And I have indeed copied that. I think. Now I just have to get it. Yeah, I copied it down there. Okay, wait, hold on. We did this. So let me see. This should be hot. let's see. If it isn't, I will get it. Okay, so this, again, this was a copy, so that's not hot. This is hot. So this is the link, okay, with these extra coordinates. And this is the page that you get. And those of you who are veterans who've done this before, I will put this. I just want to make sure I've got 241. I just want to make sure. Yeah, I thought I did something wrong. Okay, so it's this one. Okay, 924. And I'm going to put this in the chat box to everyone. Okay. Okay, so all of you should now have that. If you don't, obviously let me know right away. Okay, so that enables those of you who have done this before to start. Those of you who don't, I'm going to guide you and take you through what may be your very first remote viewing session for ARV. With our system. So as I said, this is what comes up next after you put in your email address, and or the one where you do put in your email address, and notice webinar workshop is marked. These are all the other groups we have. And then this is what comes up next. So those people who are going ahead and doing it and getting their coordinate, as soon as they clicked this, they put in their email address twice, then they click this link, then up comes the coordinate here. They'll see it here and they'll see it here. So they will have a very personal coordinate. And basically, just as it says, the next thing they have to do now that they have a coordinate is to do their RV session. And only after they finish their RV session, they come back to this page and then they upload it. For some people, this is the hardest part. Though most people by this point in time either have a scanner or a smartphone, and they can use their smartphone to take a picture of their transcript, send it to their computer, or they can do it all right on their smartphone. But somehow you need to get this into your computer system so that you can upload it, and then you click submit. So it'll show here and you click submit. Once you do click the submit, so now you're into the next phase. Now you do the judging, and you will see your two transcripts. Okay. So I'll go over some of that judging part again, but for now, for you newbies, let's do the remote viewing session. You should have a sheet of paper. On the top, click on this link here, and up will come a coordinate. If any of you do not, well, you have to put in your name first, but do that. And if you do not get a coordinate, Sylvia, you can talk direct. Questions like that are good for everybody. You will get the email in the group email, and then you would click on the link equivalent to what is right here in the chat box. So for now, just click on the link in the chat box. Please let me know if that's clear, because it's got to be clear to everybody. Okay, very good. So everybody now should have a coordinate. Put that coordinate on the top. So you haven't really started your remote viewing session, though you certainly psychologically may be getting into it. Put your name and the date and the time. These are all preliminaries. I recommend, and you should, say the coordinate out loud. It's your coordinate. It vibrates through your body. You're going to say it out loud during feedback time as well, vibrating through your same body with your same DNA. And I'm going to set you up to do a 10-minute session. But what you should know is the transcripts generally look like this. This is like a guide. I could send you this guide. But gestalts, these first impression gestalts, typically come out first. And then there are the nervous system, either word or sketch responses for textures, colors, smells, tastes, dimensions, motion, geometry, sounds, dynamics, aesthetic impacts, your feelings, and very important, what are called analytical overlays. This is where you get the feeling that your intellectual self is coming into play as opposed to your higher self or your subconscious, however you want to look at it, coming down from deep, from the UCC through a communication channel with you into your now conscious mind. Or is that coming from the intellect? Did you say red and round and you thought basketball? That, you know, there are a lot of red round things. It could have been a tomato. It could have been a lot of red round things. But there's a different feeling when it's intellectual. Often when you name it, it's intellectual. But even if you don't name it, you get a different sense. And that's really important, because that sense of knowing when you're getting stuff from your deep part of your subconscious, hey, that's kind of cool. And that communication channel serves you in many other ways besides ARV. Now, at this point, we're getting ready for you to do your remote viewing session. Set an intention, set that you're going to be paying attention to what's coming from your subconscious, but you're going to be setting an intention to be receiving information from the target, and that information is coming from the feedback session you're going to see a month from now, and have a positive expectation that you're going to be receiving this. So intention and expectation have different feelings about them, but they both have to do with the entanglement that's going to happen. And these were identified early on by Joe McMonagle and Ed May. Now, so your cue is describe and sketch. Describe and sketch with your coordinate feedback target. And now what you're about to do, and I don't know how many of you have not ever done remote viewing session, but believe it or not, it's probably the simplest, because what you want to do is very little. You want to be a receiver. Quiet yourself down right now. Might stretch a little bit. Focus on your breathing. Breathe in, breathe out. When any other thoughts come in, just let them dissipate out of your being. Go back to focusing on your breathing. You're setting your intention and expectation to receive information from your target reference number. And when you start, you're just going to write down whatever you get from your subconscious. I'll be playing some, it's called hemisync music. This cool down might extend for a few minutes, and then there'll come a time when you feel ready to receive this information. Just relax now. And after about 4 or 5 minutes, write the coordinate down again, say it out loud, and write or sketch whatever you receive. When we get right near the end of the 10 minutes, I will come in and say something. But take 3, 4, 5 minutes for your cool down. Here we go. 10 minutes is starting now. You have about 1 minute to go. Feel free to go down into your subconscious to get another element or two or three. Okay, thank you. Come on back to your normal state. You might stretch again. I hope that felt good for you. Excuse me. Most people really like just doing their remote viewing sessions as well as their feedback sessions. It's a lot of fun. Okay. So now you've done your remote viewing session. What comes next? Let me get back. What you do now is go back to, we're now going to be getting into judging. Okay. Let me tell you a little bit about judging before, in fact, we do it. We've asked a yes/no question. Will the SPY be up in the next month? And we are matching two possible targets. Let me show you what analysis judging is not. Okay, so here's a skeptic. Here's our remote viewer. I alone know the contents of this envelope. Remote viewer says it's a charcoal drawing of a woodchuck eating a small orange. Nice try, you little fraud, but that's a long way from an ink drawing of a beaver eating a tangerine. So I think that hopefully the point is well made that you do not have to get it exactly right. The idea of being close, and you've seen plenty of examples of that, is good enough. You begin to learn how your subconscious is giving you the information, and it might use words which are close, shapes which are close, and that's where the judging comes in. Ultimately, we are going to be putting together a confidence ranking, which is this TAR confidence ranking. It's a 0 to 7 scale. But I think, well, and you can see what the key elements are: no correspondence, little correspondence, some correct elements, mixture of correct and incorrect elements, and then good correspondence. So the good correspondence is where we say, yep, this is really good psychic. 3, you've just touched psychic. 3.5 is what we consider to be wagerable. 4 is good. 5 is very good, because here he uses words like unambiguous, unique matchable elements. But some correct, some incorrect information, and good correspondence with good analytical information. This is the AOL we were talking about. That's a 6 and that's a 7. So we use a 0 to 7 scale. And how do you do that with your two targets? So let's now get you to see your targets. Do you remember you did this page and you put in your email address? Let me just do it. It was the same one, and I'm going to show you what happens. So this would have been my coordinate, okay? So you should go back to this page. This was the page that gave you your coordinate. So let me make sure everybody goes back to this page, and then you need to upload your transcript. So one thing this does is guarantee it's precognition, because you would not, have the transcript and have never seen the two possible targets. Your connection was up with the real one. For today, we're going to do only self-judging. Now, if anybody's having trouble, let me know. And what I am going to do, I'm assuming you were able to find that page, right? You're all still here. I, as the task manager, can actually see your information. So those of you who are looking at this, what you should be doing, getting your transcript and beginning your judging, looking at it, but I'm going to show you how to do it in more detail. Webinar workshops. Okay, so here is today's prediction. Okay, so I already have some information coming in. Excellent. And I'll be able to show examples of this. So judging has already been done, it looks like, by 4 people. And that's terrific. Hang in there, take a little snack, because I want the newbies now to understand a little better what they should do. So hopefully all of you newbies do have in front of you 2 possible pictures. First came up 1, and then if you go down a little further, you'll have the second one, and then you can see both. Now, the way I would like you to judge is the way I indicated before, which is to take every element, which includes each word or phrase and each sketch, and mark it with an A if it's a match to photosite A, or a B if it's a match to photosite B, and a little a if it's sort of on the margin. And some words will have nothing. So you should be marking that right directly on your transcript. So this is an example of that. And then I'm going to show you how to go from there to actually get a confidence ranking. Okay, so the newbies are probably still doing judging, but while we're waiting for them, let me go take a look here and see. Okay, so Anita, you're the only one who put in your confidence rankings. So I've got 3 people that haven't gotten there yet. Let me refresh. Okay, now we have 2 people. Okay, so that's good. And this is the way I now recommend really to everybody for getting their transcript, which is first marked each element with A, B, little a or little b. And this was an idea which I say stole, but of course I discussed it with him. Joe McMonagle basically said he believes these first impression gestalts, which I've mentioned a couple of times, should be given 50% of the weight of your final 0 to 7 score. And I want to show you how we do that. You first come up with the gestalt. So you look at your picture and you say between 0 and 1, how much did my transcript match the first impression gestalts for A? And you do the same thing with B. So you get a number between 0 and 1. And this first impression gestalt is that thing you would see immediately. You know, when the thing flashes, it's the stuff that you get right away. Sometimes it's just information that gets you right in the ballpark of where you want to be. And there's generally more than one first impression gestalt. You know, the structure, yellow was examples that we had before, but fluffy, you know, there can be more than one. And did you capture that? That's 0 to 1. And then the other 50% is a fraction between 0 and 1, which is the ratio of the number of matches of A to the total possible elements. And then you do the same thing for B. And so the fig can be between 0 and 1, and this ratio can be between 0 and 1, since this is the total number of elements, and usually we miss some. But nevertheless, 0 to 1, 0 to 1, you multiply that sum by 3.5. Okay, so, and this is, again, another example. And see, and here's where I did the arithmetic here. It was 15 out of 30, which is a half, plus 0.75. It was actually originally, anyway. And then I do the same thing for, this was photosite A, this was photosite B. And I got a 4 and a 1.5. So the 4 was wagerable based on that transcript. Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat box. Okay, so just keep doing what you're doing. And let's look at, again, as task manager, I get to see all of these. And before we're done, I will make a group prediction. Okay, I have 2 here. Anita, yours came in first, so let me take a look at yours first. So just talk about it. And all I'll do is give you my impressions, and you'll, in fact, give impressions. So you gave a 4.5, and I don't want to have anybody else be influenced by what we say, so I'm not even going to say what the side is. But you gave a 4.5 to this picture. So there's your picture. And let's look at your transcript. I'm trying to make this bigger. There we go. Okay. Oops. And then your transcript is here. It won't let me rotate it. Let me rotate it by okay, I have to use Snagit to rotate it. So let me find Snagit here. Okay, where are you? Ah, there you are. Okay, so let's first get out of there. And let me capture it. These are real workshops. I'm doing all this stuff in real time. I hope you all appreciate that. Okay. And then we'll open the editor. Where's my rotate? Rotate. Okay. So let's make that bigger. Get rid of this one. Okay, Anita. Let me see if I can make that bigger, but maybe you can tell us, you probably have a judging page, and tell us how you came up with your 4.5 on this. Want to turn your mic on? I see Pungent.
Oh, there we are.
Okay, good. There you are. Yeah, so tell us about all the good stuff. 4.5 is a good score. Yeah, I already see shapes.
Yes, I got the idea, the concept of something being stacked or high, with something blue and shiny from below. So it was quite clear that it was target number A. What else? The colors mostly matched: yellow, purple, green, grey, brown is mostly the buildings. Textures somehow felt like site number B.
Yeah. Okay. So you got dry. So those that.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
It's like my subconscious gets bored and then hops over to the following target.
I think people also it's curious, and I wish we'd stop it from looking at the other.
Yeah.
I see salty, pungent.
The sounds I got also, it's like babbling
House.
or bleating, like a child's babbling almost. But I also got metal screeching like one would expect in site number A. Taste, I'm unsure, salty, pungent, could be both. I don't know what a reptile smells like.
Right.
Temperature, warm, that could be both. I feel it definitely felt outside,
Right.
artificial, man-made, made as well as natural. And shapes and dimensions were definitely angular.
Okay, did you use that Joe McMonagle approach, or did you just knowing the 0 to 7 approach?
No, I used the Joe McMonagle approach, and I actually judged A's and B's, and as well as the.
Okay, wonderful. And you got a 4.5.
Yes.
What did you give yourself for your gestalts?
Gestalts, I gave A 0.075 and B a 0.25.
Okay, very well done. Thank you. Thank you. So let me close this. Still leaves saving your capture. I don't need that. And I can close this. And let's do it for another one that I had here, which was a 5. So let's take a look at Andy. Who happened to go, there's Andy there. Wait, maybe I need to refresh. There you go, there's Andy. I don't know why I'm not seeing. Let me try it this way. There are the CRs. Okay, so a 5 for side 2. So let's take a look at your picture first, your photo site. Okay, nice rocket. I guess that's a space shuttle, huh? Whoa. And then let's see if I can get your transcript, which is here. Oh, wait, did I do that right? Yeah, side 2. Okay. Oh, I see. These are, I need to break this one out. Ugh. Okay, so there's the space shuttle. A little bigger, but I think we understand it. And we had your transcript. Let me get it again. It was okay. You gave yourself, right? Is this right? I just want to make sure I got the right picture.
Yeah, that's correct. Can you hear me?
With the 5. Yep, I can. So good. So talk us through this. I'll move this up and down just because it's so large.
So, yeah, what I really picked up on was the man-made and the hot, and I saw like a bright flash of orange, yellow.
Oh yeah, right here. Orange, bright.
It felt like it was man-made, and then the word aerodynamic popped into my mind.
Wow.
So those things together made me lean more towards that. Although there are some elements that also were in the other one a little bit, but I really felt with the heat and the bright yellow and the aerodynamic and man-made and the sizzling, popping, cracking noise I heard, I think was also.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Did you use Joe McMonagle's approach here?
I don't know what that is. I used the Targ scale. That's why I went with the 5. I thought it was pretty clear cut. I don't know what with what McMonagle.
It'll be very, I'll show you the McMonagles. You mark each one of these with the name. I'm going to go back to that because I think it's
I did use the A's and B's, and that's also helped guide me in, like, I did use A's and B's as well as the overall, like, what was I feeling.
So you could get the ratio.
Yes.
In fact, why don't you do, let's do it together. I'll show you McMonagle's approach.
Okay.
So for this particular one, and let's just look at this one, take the number of matches divided by the total, and little a's count as a half, or little b's count as a half, big b's count as a 1.
Okay.
And divide it by the total, and what did you get?
So for the A's, which is not the site that I picked, that would have been 1, 2.
Well, do the B's. Let's just focus on this one.
The B's I had 9 out of 20.
Okay, so that's about not quite half. And what would you give for the gestalts here?
The gestalt I started off with man-made, which is the right angle at the top.
Right. And sizzling. So if you had to say, in terms of your gestalts compared to this, between 0 and 1, what would you give it?
I think based upon, I would give it between 0 and 1 on my gestalts.
Yeah.
You mean as binary yes and no?
No.
I'm sorry.
No. Number between 0 and 1. In other words, did you get like half the major gestalts, 3/4, all of them? What would you say?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
If you got all of the gestalts, you'd give yourself a 1. If you got none of the gestalts, you'd give yourself a 0.
I'd say maybe 0.75.
Yeah, I would say at least, frankly. I mean, I don't know what you didn't get. The only thing you didn't get were maybe white. I
didn't get the white. I had orange, but I thought that reddish color kind of went with the orange.
Okay, so do me a favor. Work out your ratio, which is close to, for B, which is close to 0.5. And what is that? That must be 0.48 or something? Do you have a calculator there?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. We're doing this, and I'm doing it slowly, not only to teach you, but everybody else, because this is exactly Joe's approach. You take that ratio, which is 0.4.
0.4 is what? Where'd that come from?
No, I'm asking you to give it to me. I just know it starts with the 0.4.
Oh, for the ratio for the gestalts?
For B.
Oh.
No, the ratio of total
I'm sorry.
matches.
I had 9 divided by 20, so whatever that is.
Yeah.
That's 0.45.
Okay. So 0.45,
Mhm.
add 0.75. That's what you gave for your gestalts, right?
Right. So that'd be
So I
1.2.
can even do that here. That's 10. That is 1.2.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Multiply that by 3.5.
So that's a 4.2.
Okay. Joe would have given this a 4.2.
Oh, okay. I think I see.
You gave it a 5, I think. And different people with different judges are often differ by 1.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just a good way to do it. And this is a verification. Notice in both cases, it was wagerable.
Right. Yeah, I got that. Okay.
Okay. So now you understand how to do it. And
Yes.
it's, it really is important because putting in that Gestalt feature is a lot. And frankly, your 0.75, in my opinion, was probably low. I mean, to get sizzling, that's, you know, yeah, you might have missed white, but you got blue.
Mm-hmm.
I would think, you know, anyway, my feeling is even if you miss one sort of Gestalt and got all the others, you could give yourself a 0.9 or something like that, which would have gotten you up to where you were, 0.8.
Okay. I understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so let's close that. Let's close that. And maybe we have time to do one more. And then I'll make a group judgment. Kind of cool. I mean, I think in both that we saw, they've captured the target. Okay, so what I'm looking for here is, okay, so let me redo this. Maybe make it full size. Now let's go down here. Oh, I didn't get any more. Okay, yeah, a pass. And those 2. Okay, are people having problems or still working it or what? 1, 2, 3, or maybe that's all there was. Let's see, there's Anita. Oh no, okay, so Sylvia, I don't have your confidence rankings yet, Sylvia. Are you still working it or do you not know what to do? You know, these are training workshops, so talk to me if you're still here. I see your mic. Maybe.
Hi.
Hi. Okay.
Hi.
Good.
Well, I don't know how to I just don't know what number to give it. I'm sorry. This is the first time that I do this with you guys. I did it like
Hey.
3 or 4 times in the past.
This is why we're here. Hey, look, just looking at it now, is there one that looks a lot closer than the other? Oh, you did.
Well,
how did you get 2? Nobody. Oh, yeah. Is one that looks closer than the other?
what do you mean?
The matches, which is?
Well, oh, you mean out of the 2 pictures?
Right.
Right. Yeah. Well, what I saw in my mind was it took me to a plaza, right? But just one side of the plaza, and it was that round thing, and I kept seeing like something in the middle, which was the whole round thing with something in the middle. But the and bus smelled like it was like city style, But I think that one was closer than the other. Bushes and camping. The second one was closer, I would say.
Oh yeah, this one is certainly closer.
Mhm.
Okay, so let me show you what to do with judging. Look at this one.
Yeah.
I don't have your transcript somehow, or do I? Let me just see.
I sent it a couple of times.
Okay.
I wrote it down. I didn't make a drawing.
Oh, you
I
didn't?
sketched.
Did you upload it or put it in text
Yeah.
or something?
Yeah, I uploaded the page that I wrote. I was writing what I was seeing in my mind.
Okay. Oh, okay. I see. Is this it?
Let me see. Where can I see it?
It
Oh, yeah.
should be.
Oh, you're gonna upload it?
It's on the screen.
Yeah, this is it.
Okay. So I know what your picture looks like. On your transcript, you should mark like a plateau, one
Like
side.
a plaza.
Oh, like a plaza. Okay. And then what's the second one here?
This is what I saw earlier that kept popping up in my mind, and I still don't know what. I still don't know why. That's what I wrote.
That's okay.
Not now. Earlier. Remember? Can you see that I wrote in capital letters? Not now. Earlier.
Earlier.
Further down. Yeah.
Okay. And that's a cliff. And what does this say? Plenty of little animals.
Penguin looking, running towards the water, happy. But it's not
Okay.
now, earlier. And this says bus smell, like a bus. And this
Okay.
says bushes further back, pointy, almost prickly, and camping.
Okay. So clearly you got matches with your picture with some of these. Not that one.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Well, that
one
one, it was round like the plaza, but I just,
flat. You just
like
say flat.
it was the shape.
Oh, shaped like the plaza. Yeah, but it. Okay. So here. Now you need to put in your confidence rankings to finish this.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think we have time. I don't think I want to go through Joe's approach.
Okay.
But I think looking at this, I don't see any water. Do you
Oh,
see
no,
any-
no, but that was earlier. That was earlier. That was not now. I wrote it,
What
but
do you
I
mean
knew
by
that it
earlier?
wasn't now. Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by earlier? I mean, it was for this
No,
coordinate.
when you were talking,
Oh, it was for that. Okay.
when you were talking before when you started when the webinar started.
Right. Yeah, you should have
That's
used a new sheet of paper, of course.
Yeah. Sorry
But
about
that's
that.
no, but that's okay. Now that I understand.
That's why I said not now, earlier.
Okay. Okay, like a plaza. Okay, so but these, is that bugs? What kind of smell is that?
Bus, like a bus in a city. BUS.
Oh, a bus smell. Okay, that doesn't quite fit. The bushes fit very nicely.
The first drawing. What is it? Is it like what is that?
I don't know. I think it's like an air conditioning
Oh, okay.
outlet or something. It might make noise, but
Yeah. Okay.
I think this one is closer, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
think I would wager based on it. Do you?
No, I mean, this is the first time I have.
I understand. And so on your confidence ranking, now you've got a page in front of you which has confidence rankings. And I say compared to A, maybe give it a 1, and compared to B, so do you see it on the page where you can pull down the menu?
Which one? Oh,
Yeah.
here. Okay, got it. Let me
Yeah.
take a. Oh, now I just moved it.
Yeah.
Let me take a photo, please. 1 second. Now it's moving, right?
I'm
It's going.
moving, but
Oh, you're moving it.
but on your computer, you should have a page, something which looks like, well, don't you have this,
Okay.
right? You should have this right below your two pictures. These are the two pictures.
Uh-huh.
And here you have photo site A and photo site B. So
Okay.
based on our discussion, click the down arrow under photo site A.
I just don't know. You mean on my cell phone or
No.
on?
Oh, is that what you're looking? Where are you seeing this? On your cell phone or on
I,
your
I'm seeing
computer?
this on my cell phone, but I can
Okay.
go.
No, it's okay. It'll work on your cell phone.
Okay.
As long as you can you click this down arrow?
But you mean on Zoom?
No, on your cell phone. You're the one that has to submit this. So if you were home, you could do this on your cell phone, or you could do this on your computer, but it has to be from this page.
But how can I reach this page, Marty, please?
You're not on this page now?
I can only see this page through Zoom.
When did you do, what page did you use to do your judging?
I copied the URL that I was seeing on the Zoom on the Zoom.
And you saw one picture and then the second picture, and then you saw a page like this.
No, I never saw this page.
Did you see the first picture and second picture? Where did you see? Where did you see that? Where did you see those?
Because I copied the URL of the slide, of your PowerPoint slide, and then it took me there, and I entered.
It took you there where? On your computer or on your cell phone?
On my cell phone as well. I opened it through Safari.
Okay, so on Safari, go to that page that you opened. Find that page.
Uh-oh, now I lost it. Oh, no, yeah, well, I have I got it. I have the picture page.
Okay, now go down and then keep going down.
Oh, yeah, it's there.
Hey, okay, so now click this and it'll give you choices from 0 to 7.
Yeah.
And do it for A, and I suggest giving yourself a 1.
Okay.
And then for B, I don't know, probably, I think there's a 2.5.
Okay.
I thought.
I just did it.
Okay, and then in the text box say, hey, this was my first webinar with app or something like that, and then click submit and you're done.
Okay, I'm gonna click submit right now. Okay, I just click submit.
So you did it.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You know, that's what we do here. We keep just trying to teach more and more people.
I really appreciate it.
Okay, now let me get back to where I can see everybody. Let me just make sure no one else added anything. So see, as group manager, I get to see everybody. And I now have one person who was a 4.5. That was Anita. Hers was pretty good. And one person who had that 5, who I must admit I thought was very good. However, what that means is, I mean, I have 1 and 1. They were both really good. Anita's just had more of the other stuff. And when I used Joe's technique, this in fact came out to be like a little over 4, just like this was 4.5 using Joe's technique. So guess what that means? That means I should pass. So down here as group manager, I'm going to put in webinar workshop. And I could put either side 1 or side 2. Notice I don't know. Here's side 1, side 2. So I am going to pass on this one. And I'm going to say webinar workshop led to a pass. See, everything I write here and everything that we've done becomes part of the record. And I'll do a pass. And then this is what I see as a group manager. However, on my email, it'll be sent as a pass, and that's now part of the permanent record. So we can go to my email just to confirm that. So for your newbies, you can see how everything was relatively simple. It was simple, I think. And there's the group prediction for the webinar workshop. And so if you joined any of our other groups, it'll just simply say the other group name there. And you would get to know what the prediction was. And it's going to be until next week when we find the final outcome, which will be up, down, yes, no. It'll be something like that. So let's now, any questions on all of that? Because now I'll go into my grand summary. So we did the prediction and we saw some examples of summaries. And you saw what happens too often, and I guess I will make a comment about that, and that is good sessions both ways, right? The two possibilities, and one person went one way, one person went the other way. And so as a group manager, I pass. One of you will get a hit, the other will get a miss. There was actually a third person, in fact, that's who we were just talking to, who passed. But all three of you will get a feedback link in a month to do your feedback sessions and to learn from it. Now, why people can get good sessions on the wrong, or let's say the other side, the one which is not the actual feedback picture, is the mystery in all of this. Why does that happen? And nobody understands that. Some of it may be curiosity. We do know the subconscious has access to everything, but why it chooses to look at everything else is the issue. Okay, let me just finish this off. There you are, eyesight, with your deep self, subconscious or otherwise. And notice it's you doing the remote viewing, and it's you doing the feedback session, and it's the entanglement with you. And training yourself to only look at the feedback is part of the discipline that you're learning. But it begins knowing the truth. And this causes the information to entangle back with the remote viewing session. And when it doesn't work sometimes, that's okay. You still do a full feedback session, telling your subconscious, thank you for what you gave me, but it's really this session I want you to describe and sketch. And don't give me any information about the other one if you can help it. And I think the subconscious may have its own reasons for doing that. And side meditations asking why, when you get a miss, and not just a miss at 3.5, but a miss at the level of even 4.5 or 5 or 6, why did you give me information about the wrong one? And then it's this entanglement energy, which we just talked about, that you're somehow using to strengthen this entanglement. And you do that at both the RV session and the feedback sessions, because you're really working outside of time in terms of your deep entanglement. And then, you know, strong, loving entanglements. I really think that's why it's so important to enjoy what you're doing and keep positive and yeah, put some love energy in there and have clear intentions um, and expectations, and just pay attention to the now moments. And don't ever forget this. You are really soul, spirit. This information is available to you. It needs to go through your lifetime of experiences and your nervous system. And that's what you're refining so that you can get information from your deep self. Isn't that a worthwhile challenge to get more and more in touch with your higher self, your personal higher self? I certainly think so. And then I wish all of you health, wealth in the deepest sense, where you share with the other personal conscious individuals out there, and wisdom. And I thank you for joining me. And any final questions or comments before we end this? Well, you're certainly very welcome. As you probably pick up, I do consider this a passion of mine and something which I enjoy doing, and I couldn't do it if it wasn't for you. So that's great. Okay, so I will end this now, and all of you just keep precogging.